Good AI versus bad AI today on the Church Revitalization Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast, brought to you by the Malfers Group team, where each week we tackle important, actionable topics to help churches thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Scott Ball and A.J. Mathieu.
Welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast. My name is Scott Ball. I'm joined by my friend and co-host, A.J. Mathieu. A.J., taking off the glasses because we're talking about, I don't know, I just feel like taking off the glasses.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
Yeah,
I
wasn't trying to make a
connection
point.
Was about to be. Okay.
I was trying to think of a connection, and then I realized there isn't really one. I just, for some reason, when we're recording, I like to not be wearing my glasses. So,
Okay. Someday you might have AI eye correction.
You know, have we never talked about this? I've had LASIK.
Yeah. I know you've had LASIK, and now here you are wearing glasses. So, which
it's still a massive improvement.
Yeah,
like I can walk around. We can record this podcast, and I don't need any. I can see my notes, all of this. So, okay, let's talk about AI. There's a lot of buzz around artificial intelligence, and I think there's maybe a lot of misinformation. I know it's kind of a buzzword I hate too, but or just misunderstanding around what it is and what it isn't. In fact, I saw a recent study from Barna that said people reacted differently to certain questions about AI when you use the term AI versus when you say the words artificial intelligence.
Okay.
Like people react more positively to when you say artificial intelligence versus when you say AI. People
really
have a
I don't think I have a personal emotional difference between the two. Maybe because I know it well enough.
I was going to say you're more familiar with it.
Yeah.
And also people, it was interesting. Barna did in the study. Barna was looking at like when people were, I guess, when they were educated a little bit on some things that are AI that they maybe use all the time that they don't realize are AI. Things like Siri or Alexa. And I'm sorry. Oh, actually, I said Siri, and now Siri's activated on my iPad for my notes. I'm not talking to you. Go away. Oh, and then she did. Look at her. That's AI right there.
So is Alexa really AI? Because she's not very smart. She doesn't do much.
Well, it's because she's artificial. Just kidding.
She's artificial?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you ask Alexa...
Yes, of course it's AI. What would it be if it's not? It is.
It's like very low level. It's like 2021 AI. I don't know. It's... Because you ask her a question, and then she's like, here's something I found on the internet. And she just...
Right.
You can't really talk to her like you can ChatGPT and some others.
Right, because that robot is not a large language model.
Okay.
Not using a large language model. So I think that, again, this is some of the maybe just lack of understanding around what AI is. And AI is not one thing. It's not like, oh, AI is ChatGPT. Well, no, ChatGPT is just, it's a large language model, that you're interfacing with. And my understanding isn't like if I keep talking, I'm going to quickly tread into things I don't know anything about, and people who know more will listen to it and say, "You're an idiot, and you're not saying that correctly." But so we're saying AI, and we're talking about artificial intelligence, kind of in a very broad sense. But I still do think that there are a lot of people, AJ, who are just convinced there's like a devil in it, and I should just avoid it. And so we thought it might be helpful. We did one episode on AI, and it was in 2023, and a lot has changed since then. In the sort of year and a half or so that it's been since we did that episode, and we want to talk about the bad AI, the good AI, and why your church should be using it. So that's kind of the outline for today.
Yeah. All right, well, so let's jump in. So first with the bad AI. And yeah, I don't know. I guess you could try to replace a human or multiple people with it. And I guess if you attempt to do that, you're treading into bad AI territory, instead of using it for some of the positive or tool-based things like we're going to get into in a moment. But AI, first of all, it should not be writing your sermon. You should not be, and honestly, you could. It absolutely could.
Yeah, that was our episode a year ago. Was how good is an AI sermon? And the answer was not very. I think if we were to run that episode again today, especially now that we understand prompt engineering a little bit better, it could probably write a better sermon than some people I've heard.
I would totally agree. Seeing some of the outputs that we're able to get out of it, for various writing projects and things that we've tested, it absolutely could write a better sermon than many pastors I've heard in the past. And so, you are not limited by its ability at this point to create a well-constructed sermon.
Right.
But obviously, we're not talking about writing a speech for a CEO. We're talking about writing a sermon for a congregation presented by someone called by God to minister through the power of the Holy Spirit, through God's scripture, an inspired message about who God is. And these are two completely different things. And so, I think maybe some people could rationalize it, be like, well, I had the idea, I had the thought, but I'm just not really that good at writing or, constructing these things. I think you're treading on some uneven surface there, a little sandy ground, maybe.
I think so. I mean, I think if you believe that a sermon is just words, then by all means use AI to write it. But if you believe that it's not just words, that there's a relationship between the communicator and the capital W word, and there's an interface there that influences what you say, I think you can't replace it because of that metaphysical thing that happens, I think, when you're putting a sermon together. I feel the same way about it, actually, AJ, as I do about people who buy sermons. I mean, you can go online and you can buy sermons written by someone else.
Yeah.
And if you're in the habit of doing that or have ever done that, then I will just tell you, save your money and use ChatGPT.
I was going to say, this would be a lot cheaper for you.
Yeah, because, why not? But I don't like that either. To me, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
You're outsourcing work that you ought to do. If it's just about trying to get words on a page, by all means, the AI is pretty good. If you are recognizing that it's not just about getting words down on the page, that there is a spiritual connection between myself and the text and the words that I'm saying, and I need to feel something when I say these words, then you can't outsource that. That doesn't mean there's no role that AI could play in help you putting together a sermon, maybe helping you cross-reference things or find other verses, like using it a little bit like Google that way, to help you to find things. I think that's great. But the actual crafting of the sermon has to happen with you, I think. So the bad AI is definitely around actually writing the sermons. AJ, I think it's also, I would want to say artificial intelligence is not a substitute for emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, because I think that there's an element of that. There's an emotional intelligence that goes into crafting a sermon. So I think really our bad AI point is really mostly around sermon development. But
I think it's more than that. I mean, I think, I'm a fan of a AI chat widget, but it has to have massive limitations on it. If it's just communicating information,
yeah.
And if you wanted to have an AI chat widget on your website to answer questions about when things are happening, who's the contact person, but the second someone starts saying, "I'm in a crisis" or "I need prayer,"
yeah, totally.
At that point, the AI has to say, I'm not the air quotes person. I'm not the the entity to help you with that. Here's the human that you need to connect with. So I think that there are maybe other fair use, ethical uses of AI that have to have boundaries to them, where you go, you're moving from content territory to emotional territory, and wherever you find that line to be, that has to be the distinction between what the robot can do and what a human must do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. There's some low EQ, emotional intelligence people in pastoral positions that may miss some of these things as well. But you can't. I mean, you have to work on those skills, especially in a one-on-one situation. But even back to the sermon development. I mean, you have to know. I mean, what is the word that my congregation needs to hear? So, I mean, there's this connection between you and God, and you and the congregation. And though you can present information and facts and understanding from Scripture, but if you can't really connect it to the emotional state of your church, which even as a whole could be wrestling with something, that kind of maybe affects everybody, or, something external, out in the world has happened that, most of your congregation is feeling, you're going to miss those pieces. But yeah, I think you really brought up a great point, because that's a separate use, like a chat bot. So if you've ever been on a website and it has, the little thing pops up like, "Hi, how can I help you?" The little paperclip in the old Word from the 1990s.
Clippy.
So yeah, those things, sometimes those do very little, and they, at this point in history, they could be available to do almost limitless things. And so I think, we've got to put the correct reins on those and boundaries for what those are allowed to do. I guess it is cool that, somebody that is knowledgeable about this can configure it and program it to have these limitations. But what you said is a specific tech piece that needs to be on there, and it's where it gets out of bounds, and it needs to be trained to recognize that and say, here's how you can connect with one of our staff team to talk about what you've addressed today. So that has got to be a piece in there. You cannot deploy this on your website and just let it run free.
Yeah, to me, that is the bad AI is not just it doing things it shouldn't do.
Yeah,
it's you using it without really a knowledge of the fact that it might tread into things that it shouldn't.
Yeah.
You need to know how to set boundaries on it, not just personal boundaries, but if you're deploying this in some public space, you need to, as best you can, things can happen, I guess, but try to create some boundaries around it and know how to install those boundaries around it, so it doesn't say something that violates your values or your beliefs.
Yeah.
Or start addressing things that you don't want it to address or to say.
Yeah.
And it's not, it may not be possible to get 100%, but if you're going to use these tools, there are ways to audit them, check in on them, and see what kind of responses they're giving so that you can correct it and train it in righteousness, so to speak, and try to limit any mistakes it may make in the future.
Yeah. We've got a chat feature on our website at malforsgroup.com that will pop up and, ask if you've got any questions. And that is usually me. So, and I've had that question before. People say like, "Are you real?
Are you a robot?" Yeah. Like, nope.
And sometimes at that moment, I'm like, how can I convince this person that I am actually a human? Because the AI is so good. It could be like, sure. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
But I guess maybe one of the biggest indicators is that I don't often remember to log in and monitor it. So you go to our website and you're like, oh, the chat thing is offline. It's because AJ forgot to activate it or is out of the office, or, doesn't have time. But yeah, for now, we are still human-based on the chat on malforsgroup.com.
Yeah. Alternatively, inside the Healthy Churches Toolkit, we'll talk more about this later, but there's within each of our training courses, there's a course assistant and that's AI generated. So you can ask questions about the content if you need help understanding a concept or what is this versus this, and we're continuing to refine that. Even it gives good answers 99% of the time, but I can see all of those responses, and when it gives an incorrect response or not quite right, I can go back in and edit the response it should have given. So if it gets that question again, it answers it the right way. So, that's a good transition to good AI. Mm-hmm. We can maybe talk about some good use cases.
Oh, I love how you framed this up, because I think this is a good way of thinking about it. Excuse me. Good AI is like having a pretty good intern on your team.
A high capacity intern.
Yeah. I mean, thinking about what a human could do at an assistant type level that you could hand tasks off to really is a good way of viewing good AI and how it could be used. Not that
I feel like I should clarify,
business, but
yeah. I was going to say, I feel like I should clarify. It's AI is a lot smarter. It knows a lot more things than you or me or an intern. But in terms of its ability to handle that information and for it to do what you actually would like for it to do, without just tons of feedback and coaching, it's kind of like an intern. At least at the time of this recording, it's going to improve, but it has a lot. It's like if you had a high capacity intern whose brain was connected to Google. You'd still have to be like, no, that's not what I want. I want this. You still have to give it a lot of direction, like you would an intern. It's just a lot smarter. Its knowledge base is enormous
and way faster,
and way faster. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, what would literally take hours for a human to do, maybe even days, it will probably produce in seconds. So you have, even using it that way, you have way more time than you would to tweak it, modify the output to be more specifically what you're looking for. So yeah, in that respect, what you use it for, what you choose to use it for, can be a big time saver, and maybe even produce better results. So that is good. Researching is great. Non-sermon, non-spiritual based writing projects that need to convey information, I think is a really great use of it. They vary too. We're not going to get into a deep dive on the different ones that are out there, because there's a lot of them. Sometimes are all based on one particular language model like ChatGPT. Others are developed separately. And there's differences between them. So as you get more into this use, you really have to experiment. And it is like building a toolbox, and knowing, I could use the adjustable wrench for this 1/2 inch nut, or I could use my 1/2 inch wrench for a 1/2 inch nut. And depending on it, maybe either one is fine, or maybe you need a specific fit for something. So,
this isn't in the notes, but I can maybe break down a couple, because you might be going, I've only ever heard of ChatGPT. What are these other ones that you're even talking about? So, we have not used AI image generation at all. I know that there's a lot of these platforms. I couldn't give you any sort of direction on that. I've played with a couple of them. I don't think any of them are very good at the moment. I mean, they make things that look nice, but they all still look really fake. So, if you're looking for a good stock photo, I still think you should probably just get a stock photo. But in terms of content generation or research, if you're looking for research, I would really recommend you look at Perplexity. Of course, I think as of the time of this recording, they might be under a little bit of an investigation, because
are they?
Yeah, they're not doing anything. I don't know that they'll get in any trouble, because I don't think they're breaking any laws, because there's just no laws on any of this stuff right now. But essentially, they're scraping Google and giving you those results, but not Google's not getting any credit for that, and they are at least sort of linking to these original sources. So if you're wanting to find information about something, it will lay out those facts for you, or that information, or that research, and then provide links to where that is on the internet. So, I mean, at least there's that. Whereas ChatGPT, if you ask it a question and then you ask it for a source, it might be like, don't know, or it might make up a source. Just hallucinate entirely a source that isn't real. It'll sometimes just make up facts. And, you really can't trust. You really, really cannot trust what ChatGPT says is a fact. Kind of like an intern. Like, where did you get this information, intern? I heard it somewhere. Oh, really? You did? So, but in terms of thinking through sort of analytical type tasks, ChatGPT does a good job. If you're working on a creative task, ChatGPT's gotten better, but Claude, I think, is the best. CLAUDE for generating good writing, good content for writing, which maybe leads to the other point that I want to make here. As far as good AI is really good at repackaging content. So if you have information, or you have a sermon, or you have your sermon notes, or you taking the work that you've already done and then giving that to AI to repurpose it or to repackage it into different things, that is an excellent use of AI, because it saves you a ton of time. You already did the work. You did the hard work of thinking through the concepts and writing the sermon and or planning the event or whatever it is. And then it's a large language model. The thing that it's best at is language. And to give it that input and then to let it repurpose it or to repackage it for you, it's silly not to use it, because it's so good at doing that specific task.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a specific use that I'm presently using right now is a translation, but also text mining out of images, which is really a fascinating use for this. I just returned from Italy, working with a church in Italy, and we worked in Italian while we were there. The pastor's bilingual and was able to translate between me and the team. And I knew, as soon as we started, it was going to be easier to have them create the charts and all the tools that we work through in Italian so that they can read it in the moment. I can hear and I'll know, when it's being written, I'll hear what they're talking about, and it can easily be read back to me. And so I was like, this is going to be easier for them. They're going to do better work in their own language. But I knew going into that, I can bring these things home and very easily translate. And I'm talking about taking a picture of handwritten sentences and words. I put it in ChatGPT and I upload it. I say, read the text of this image and translate it from Italian to English. And in a minute, I've got it. So because I'm putting together a summary report for them and I'll be coaching them. And so that's an amazing use for this. Otherwise, how would I do that? Send my pictures back to the pastor and go, okay, can you
translate all this for me?
Can you translate, type this out and send it back to me? And so it's really fascinating. I think that's a good example of good AI to be able to cross language barriers. And not even to mention, Scott, the video translation.
Yeah. We in preparation for working with this church in Italy, where half of the congregation only speaks Italian, we realized kind of late to the game, oh no, we need to have this content for them, this training content for them in Italian. Well, I don't speak Italian, and AJ doesn't speak Italian. We do have a guy on our team actually who does speak Italian, but to get him, film these videos, would have taken him days, and then edit them and so on.
Yeah.
So we used HeyGen, which is a online service that can take your video and it can overdub your video using a cloned voice, so it sounds like you speaking it, and it even changes your mouth so it looks like you're saying the words. Yeah. It's not perfect. You can tell it's a little bit like watching like an old kung fu movie, I think.
It gets better than that, and I think it's good enough that you will quickly forget and you will only be hearing a speaker and seeing a speaker. I think you'll forget within seconds.
Sure. Is it perfect? Is the translation perfect? Probably not. Would we ever want to try to pass that off as it's actually AJ and Scott speaking Italian?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. So we were, you're able to say, hey, look, this is AI translation of, we did shoot these videos. This is not a total fabricated thing.
Yeah.
We really shot these videos.
It's original thought, original content.
Original thought. We did the work of creating these things, but we want to get it to you in a language you can understand. That in one night, overnight, it took hours, 5 hours of video, and it translated it, did whatever it does on the back end, and then output videos that I could download and upload. It's unbelievable. And so I think if you're listening to this and you're going, man, I'm just afraid of this AI stuff. Hear me say, you gotta know where your boundaries are and what you will say. It's good for this and it's not good for this.
Yeah, which is kind of our segue into our final point as to why we think you should use AI. And we've begun to give you examples of this, I think, in the good AI use that we just talked about. It is a tool. It's a useful tool in certain places that you could use it in your church. And I think your first point here, Scott, in this final area that we're talking about is that it truly is an amoral tool. Like many things in life, it could be used for good or evil.
Yeah. Is a shovel evil? If you're burying someone alive, it is.
Yeah. Or if you've used it to kill them in the first place. Yeah. Don't hit someone in the head with a shovel. Maybe plant a tree.
Bury them with it. Yeah.
Yeah, it truly. So yes, I don't know, and we'll get pushback on that. Some people will say, no. It really, even I think maybe coming back to the term like intelligence, calling it, that feels like we're humanizing it, and so I think some people really feel that way. Like God, Creator, created us from dust of the earth. He breathes life into us. We are the ones given intelligence by our Creator, and to even give that attribute to a machine I can kind of see how you might feel that way, and again, you can totally. It's fine for you to hold that opinion and say, I think you guys are just you're on a slippery slope, and you should have stayed away from it altogether. So I get that argument. I personally feel that way. And I think most people maybe are kind of middle of the road and and don't yet even really understand it still.
Yeah. I would maybe push back on a couple of things, if not on you, because we actually have a similar view on this. But to anybody who's reticent, maybe I'll start with this. AJ, what do we measure? What do we measure an engine's sort of what word do we use when we're talking about how powerful an engine is?
The horsepower.
Yeah. So I mean, but a car isn't a horse. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there are things about a horse that you can't replace with a car. The one thing you can replace is how fast it can go. It can go a lot faster than a horse.
Mm-hmm.
It can get you somewhere. But if you ever owned a horse, which I don't, but you have a relationship with it. It's an animal. Like, it has feelings, it has emotions, there's all things about it. And I live here in East Tennessee, and right now, trust me, cars are great, but what people really want right now are horses. And because there are things that only horses can do in places right now that only horses and mules can go, that cars can't get to. So it's not a replacement. It's just different. It's taking one very specific thing about a horse and using it to benefit mankind. Likewise, this is not exactly a direct correlation, But artificial intelligence isn't intelligent in the way that a human is intelligent. It's taking one aspect of human intelligence and commodifying it in some way to make life better for human beings. And we've been doing this from the beginning of time, from creating written language so that we can pass on our knowledge and understanding over a period of time. And you're already using if you've ever used Siri, you've used artificial intelligence. You just didn't know that that's what you were doing. There's all kinds of things where artificial intelligence is happening in the background, and you don't even know that it's happening. From your car to other tools that you use, it's embedded in it, it's baked in, and it's maybe more rudimentary than what ChatGPT is, but it is a form of artificial intelligence, and it's been around for a long time. And so I think sometimes we let our fear and whatever you've seen on social media convince you that this thing is evil, and it's the Satan, and it's the sign of the beast or whatever. And it's just not. It's a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good and it can be used for bad. And I do think, though, that you need to know what your lines are. You go, I'm never going to let a computer do this. Just like pre-AI days, AJ, there are evil ways to leverage a computer. That's especially one that's connected to the internet. And you have to know what those boundary lines are, and you go, we're not on my computer. We're not doing this. And it's important actually for you to have a nuanced understanding of how you're going to use it. So let me tell you, let me weave in the Healthy Churches Toolkit here. I think that in 2024, and at the time of this recording, and we'll look back on this recording 10 years from now, AJ, and go, ugh, things have changed. And that's okay, because the internet changed in 10 years. It's okay for us to just speak about it in the form that it exists right now. Right now, most AI tools require you to have some understanding of how they work in order for them to be useful to you. You need to understand how to put together a good prompt. You need to understand how to give it proper feedback so you can get more of what you want and less of what you don't. And so in the Healthy Churches Toolkit, we're hoping to help a lot of people who don't want to take the time right now to learn how to use AI, but could still benefit from the power of these kinds of tools. And so we're using, as of right now at the launch, we're going to have form-based, not chat-based AI tools. So I guess the exception to that would be the course assistant is chat-based. You're asking it questions. But in terms of the content generation that you would actually be using, it's form-based. So you give certain inputs, like information about an event that you have coming up, and then you press submit on that, and then it's inserting your information into the prompt we already wrote, and we have tested dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of times to make sure that we're getting a consistent output the correct way, that doesn't do something or say something inappropriate or out of bounds or strange. It's very specifically mapped to make sure that you get a good output. So you just fill out the form, and then it's giving you what you're needing in terms of, in that instance, Facebook post content, email newsletter content, content for your church bulletin. And that should save your secretary or your admin person, could save them 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes having to write all that, and it can do it in seconds. And then, as we talked about last week, our sermon discussion guide generator, you already wrote the sermon. Why not take advantage of a form-based tool that you simply put in your information, copy and paste your information, and then boom, it's going to generate a discussion guide based on the work you already did. And we have tested this many, many times, and it is consistently putting out very good results, insightful questions, cross-references to other places in Scripture, icebreakers that are relevant, application questions that are relevant, because it's dependent on your content, what you put in. And the beauty of it is it's form-based, so you don't have to worry about crafting the prompt the right way. You're just putting in your information, and then it's spitting it out. So in 2024, where it still requires a lot of back and forth in the chat style stuff, we don't want you to have to worry about that. We're using form-based AI-powered tools so that you don't have to worry about the prompt. And you can just get that content you need. And we will add more tools. As we can find good use cases for it, we'll add more into the toolkit. And that's all included.
And
all included.
The output is editable too. So, you know,
that's right.
You can, when you see what it says, that's not exactly how I would have said that. Great. Make it sound like you.
Right. And again, you'll be able to copy and paste that into like a note application within the toolkit. And then you can edit it to your heart's content. Yeah.
It's going to be a huge time saver. This is similar to, you know, website development in the 90s and I was part of that. You learn HTML coding and, you know, you can start building websites and most of the population was like, I don't understand any of that. I'm not going to do that. So people were doing that for you. And then, you know, into the beginning of this century, we started getting these, they call them WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, you know, form based and then visual drag and drop things where you don't have to know how to code. You can create something that you want. And so we're kind of in that space with AI. You know, we're doing the tech piece for you on the back end because you don't understand how to create. Even this term prompt, Scott, has become, I mean, for you and I, it's become part of our language. People are like, what is this? What is a prompt? It's this whole new,
what is a prompt?
Whole new use of this word that has a new context that a lot of people don't understand. And so, yeah, it's an interesting new technology that is still at the very beginning. It's increasing in its usefulness and accuracy at an exponential rate.
Yeah.
But,
we
so I think
want
we've got some good
you,
uses.
you know, at our team, we want you to be able to take advantage of the power of these tools.
Yeah.
And as to the degree that we can, remove some of the fear or risk. So like we're only going to add tools that will add value to your ministry, but it can be reasonably trusted. It's still a computer and we're still not, it's not AJ and I in the back, you know, doing all the typing. So is there some chance that it could say something you wouldn't quite like? I suppose so. But we test these things vigorously to make sure that the content is right and good. And, you know, if you come across one mistake or something, you'd go, no, I don't quite like that. You still are in full control to edit that thing. But we'll continue to add those tools because to me, the bottom line is, and we'll wrap up with this, is that you should use tools that can give you the time to do what only humans can do. There are things that a robot will never be able to do, no matter how good the tech gets. And pastors are chronically short on time. So if there are tools you can use that give you more time to be with people, to develop leaders, to pray with people, then it's a good use of your time. So that's why we're building these things into the toolkit. That's not the only thing in the tool. We got all of these like plug and play resources and all training and all these other things in the toolkit. But I'm really happy with these dynamic tools. They're not static tools. They're things you can continue to use again and again. I think they're going to add a lot of value to your life and make your life easier.
Yeah. So if you are now thinking, man, I would like to see this, like see how it works, you've come to the right place. If you go to malfirsgroup.com/launch, you can register for our launch event happening on October 15th at 12 noon. Is that Eastern time?
Eastern time. Yep. 12
Eastern on October 15th. Go to malfirsgroup.com/launch. And we're going to spend some time in a live event. It's going to be us. It will not be AI, Scott and AJ.
Yeah, that's right.
We're gonna let you see exactly what are you going to get in the toolkit, how does it work, and how can it be used for good in your church. And then the day after that, October 16th, is the public opening of the toolkit, in which you'll be able to get in there and get registered and get a free trial period before having to pay anything for it for an ongoing subscription. And additionally, this is another component of our ministry that will be helping support our international ministry. So while there are subscription fees in North America, there won't be for our brothers and sisters around the world that need access to these types of resources. And so you'll be helping make these available for them based on subscriptions here in North America, where we are so incredibly blessed. And so,
Hey, can I just say, this is like connected to what you're saying, but it's maybe slightly off topic. I just maybe want to mention this. Because we talk about how we serve churches outside of North America at no cost to them. And I think that some people, maybe if I didn't do what I do and I was just listening to this podcast, I'd go, yeah, but what about Europe though? I mean, that's a rich, financially rich place.
Yeah.
Why are we giving Europeans something for free?
Yeah.
And I think that you should know the financial challenges of churches in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Not only are they on average smaller than churches in the US, they really struggle financially because they're, the average per person giving in the United States is something, AJ, I don't remember the number.
Now.
Yeah, it's like $44, I think, per person per week is the average for a church in the US. In Europe, that number is less than half of that. And so when you imagine if your church tomorrow, no matter what size you are, took a 50% cut in what you're bringing in. And then you were to say, hey, we have this tool. It could really serve you. Will you pay for it? They'd go, I'd love to have it, but we got to keep the lights on. We'd love to pay our pastor something, and feed his family and that kind of thing. So that's why we do this. So I don't want you to assume, wow, yeah, I can understand for those churches in a third world country why they might need access at no cost. But what about what's going on in Europe? You should know our brothers and sisters in Europe who are leading churches aren't as blessed as we are with resources to access tools and things.
Yeah.
So that's why we do this.
It is. It is there's a different giving culture. I mean, it's even more secularized culture than here in the US. And things have it's just not what it was, decades or centuries ago. And, and that's why, we exist to help churches all around the world. So, and I just said this last week, working in Italy, that the church should be here to change the culture. The culture should not be changing the church. And the more we build healthy churches in different places around the world, the necessity and the call that God has on us to support the church financially and with our service will begin to permeate those. So, I have a vision of healthy churches around the world, regardless of where they are, affecting the culture first internally and then externally. That we can have revitalization, and that would increase that. I mean, I would love, decade 10, 20, who knows how long from now, that the people in the churches in Europe and in other parts of the world are giving in a high capacity, and we solve some financial problems for them to do more ministry. So it's all part of our ministry vision that we're just working and striving towards. And we need you to make that happen as well. malfersgroup.com/donate is where you can partner with us to help us get there. It costs a lot of money to go around the world and to train people, increase our team size, and develop these resources. So
that is true. And so if you've ever thought, man, I'd love to help those Malfirst guys, and it's not just me and AJ. We've got team members around the world who are stationed to do this work. But you've also we already have our mission partners set, and it's kind of hard to add new ones. Know that subscribing to the Healthy Churches Toolkit is a way to support that ministry. And so, because we're all one, it's all one ministry. So when you purchase the toolkit, it helps your church. It also benefits the global church. I've kind of made this joke, but it's a little bit like the Tom's shoes of church resources, that you're helping yourself. You're buying this for yourself, but you're also giving it as a gift to someone else. So maybe it's hard to get on your missions budget, but you've got continuing education funds, or you've got a subscriptions budget, or whatever line item the toolkit could come out of for you. So just know that you're doing double duty. You're helping yourself and you're helping others when you sign up.
Yeah, there you go. Well, this has been episode 262 of the Church Revitalization Podcast. So today's notes are at malfirstgroup.com/262, along with links to the various things that we've talked about here for the launch event and to partner with us in ministry around the world. So be sure and check those out and pray about that for your church, what might be right for you guys to do. We will be back with you again next week. And by the way, next time you hear the Church Revitalization Podcast, I will be out of the country again. So just continuing our global missions with the church. But we're glad you're with us today. We love you guys. Glad to be here to help you. And can't wait to be with you again. See you then.